Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Perseverance, watching the massive alien ships appear on her screens. The vessels were unlike anything Earth had ever built. They looked like giant metal eagles with wings spread wide, colored in deep purple and gold. Each ship was 3 times larger than her own vessel. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications station. His voice carried a mix of excitement and worry. "Put it through, Lieutenant." The main screen flickered and showed an alien face. The creature had blue-gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and what looked like small horns growing from its forehead. When it spoke, the universal translator made its words clear in English. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Confederacy. You are the species called humans from the planet Earth. I have studied your basic information from our databases." Sarah stepped forward. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen. Welcome to our system, Admiral. We're honored to meet you." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in a pattern that suggested confusion. "Captain Chen, I will now issue the formal challenge as required by Galactic law. You must choose your strongest warrior to fight our champion in single combat. The winner's species will have the right to negotiate. The loser's species will submit to the winner's terms. This is how things are done." Sarah looked around her bridge. Her crew members exchanged glances. They had spent years preparing for first contact with aliens, running through hundreds of different scenarios. But every simulation had assumed the aliens would want to talk first. "Admiral Kethvar," Sarah said carefully, "we appreciate you following your customs, but we have a different idea. Would you like to sit down and talk instead? We could share some coffee and discuss what we both want from this meeting." The silence that followed lasted for 30 seconds. On the alien ship's bridge, Admiral Kethvar stared at his own crew. His tactical officer, a younger Zephyrian named Vextar, was running diagnostics on the translation equipment. "Admiral," Vextar reported, "the translation is correct. The human leader is suggesting we bypass the challenge entirely and proceed directly to conversation." "That's impossible," Kethvar replied. "No species in 10,000 years of galactic history has ever refused the challenge protocol. They must not understand." Back on the Perseverance, Sarah waited patiently. She had learned from her diplomatic training that sometimes people needed time to process unexpected information. Finally, Admiral Kethvar spoke again. "Captain Chen, perhaps your translation equipment is malfunctioning. I am offering you a chance to prove your species' worth through combat. This is an honor. Every species must earn its place in the galaxy." Sarah smiled. "Our translation equipment is working fine, Admiral. We understand what you're offering. We just think there might be a better way. Why don't you and a small group come aboard our ship? We'll show you around, and you can see what humans are like. No fighting necessary." The alien admiral's face went through several expressions that the translator couldn't interpret. His crew was now openly staring at him, waiting for his response. "Captain," called Commander Martinez, Sarah's first officer, from his station. "I'm reading increased energy signatures from their weapon systems. They might be preparing for combat." Sarah nodded but kept her voice calm. "Admiral Kethvar, our sensors show your weapons powering up. Are you planning to attack us?" "No," the alien replied quickly. "Our weapons are not targeting you. My weapons officer is simply confused by your response. His training protocols have no instructions for this situation." Sarah turned to her communications officer. "Rodriguez, send them the coordinates for our docking bay. Also, prepare the welcome package we discussed." "Yes, Captain." Admiral Kethvar watched his screens as new data arrived from the human ship. Instead of defensive positions or weapon targeting information, he received docking instructions and something his computer labeled as cultural exchange materials. "Admiral," his science officer reported, "they're sending us information about human food, music, and art. They appear to want us to experience their culture." "This is highly irregular," Kethavar muttered. He had commanded fleets for 40 years and fought in over 60 challenge battles. Never had he encountered a species that seemed more interested in sharing their food than proving their strength. "Sir," Vextar said quietly, "what do we do? The challenge protocols don't have any instructions for a species that refuses to fight." Kethavar considered his options. He could attack the human ship and force them into battle. But something about Captain Chen's manner made him curious. She had shown no fear when facing ships that clearly outgunned her vessel. She had no anger in her voice when discussing what should be a matter of species survival. Instead, she seemed genuinely pleased to meet them. "We will accept their invitation," he decided. "Prepare a shuttle. Take 10 guards, but keep weapons on minimal power settings. I want to understand what kind of species refuses to fight for their right to exist." 1 hour later, Admiral Kethavar stepped aboard the human ship. The first thing that surprised him was the smell. Instead of the sterile, recycled air common on military vessels, the Perseverance smelled like something he couldn't identify. It was warm and somehow comforting. Captain Chen met them at the airlock. She was smaller than Kethavar had expected, barely reaching his shoulder. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore a blue uniform with minimal decorations. "Welcome." "Aboard, Admiral," she said, extending her hand in what his briefing materials had identified as a human greeting gesture. Kethavar cautiously touched her hand with his own. Her grip was firm but not aggressive. "Thank you for accepting our invitation," Sarah continued. "We've prepared a tour of our ship, and our chef has made some special dishes we think you might enjoy." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Kethavar noticed that the human crew members they passed all nodded respectfully to him. None of them appeared afraid or hostile. Some even smiled. "Captain Chen," he said, "I must ask directly. Do you understand that refusing our challenge means your species will be considered weak by the rest of the galaxy?" Sarah stopped walking and turned to face him. "Admiral, can I ask you something? In all these challenge battles you've fought, did the losing species become your enemies?" "Of course. That is expected. And how many of those species are now your allies?" Kethavar thought about this. "Allies. The defeated species serve us. That is different from alliance." "On Earth we have a saying," Sarah said. "You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. It means you get better results by being kind to people than by being harsh." They entered the ship's dining hall, where tables had been set up with various human foods. The aroma that had puzzled Kethavar earlier was stronger here. His guards spread out around the room, still alert but clearly intrigued by the colorful display of food. "What is that smell?" he asked. Sarah grinned. "Coffee. It's a human drink made from ground beans. We think you might like it, as Admiral." Kethavar tasted his first cup of coffee and watched his guards cautiously try human chocolate. He began to understand why the challenge protocols had no instructions for dealing with humanity. How do you fight a species that greets your weapons with welcome gifts and answers your threats with dinner invitations? For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethavar wondered if there might be a better way to meet new species than pointing guns at them. The news spread across the galaxy faster than a solar flare. On the planet Zephyr Prime, Admiral Kethavar stood in the Great Council chamber, facing questions from leaders who could barely believe his report. "You mean to tell us," said High Chancellor Morden, her voice rising with each word, "that these humans offered you food before you even completed the challenge ritual?" "Yes, Chancellor. They called it coffee and chocolate. The taste was pleasant." The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. In the back rows, younger Zephyrians whispered among themselves. The older members sat in stunned silence. "This is against every law of galactic civilization," declared War Minister Thexon. "Species earn their place through strength. This is how it has always been." Kethvar shifted uncomfortably. Minister, I have been thinking about this. Perhaps we should consider that there might be other ways to determine a species' worth. The gasps from the council were audible. No Zephyrian military officer had ever questioned the challenge system. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Elena Vasquez was preparing for her own mission. Unlike Captain Chen's unexpected first contact, Elena had weeks to plan her approach to the Zephyrian homeworld. Remember, she told her team as they boarded the transport ship Harmony, we're not just representing Earth. We're showing the galaxy a new way of doing things. Dr. James Park, the mission's chief scientist, loaded the last of their gifts into the cargo bay. Medical equipment, agricultural seeds, and cultural items filled dozens of containers. Elena, are you sure about giving them our latest cancer treatment? Technology? He asked. On Earth, this would be worth billions of credits. Elena smiled. James, what's the point of having something wonderful if you can't share it? Besides, imagine what we might learn from their medical knowledge in return. The Harmony arrived at Zephyr Prime 3 days later. Unlike the warships that usually approach the planet, Elena's ship sent no challenge signals. Instead, it broadcast music, Earth music, featuring everything from classical symphonies to jazz to simple children's songs. In the planet's orbital traffic control center, Controller, Yexnal stared at her screens in confusion. Sir, she called to her supervisor, the human ship is not following approach protocols. They're not demanding combat clearance or requesting a challenge arena assignment. What are they requesting? Asked Supervisor Gexthor. Landing permission. For a diplomatic meeting. And sir, they're asking if we need any emergency medical supplies while they're here. Gexthor had been managing orbital traffic for 15 years. He had seen ships arrive carrying everything from weapons of mass destruction to exotic animals for the challenge arenas. Never had he seen a ship arrive asking if they could help with medical problems. Grant them landing permission, he decided, and alert the medical facilities that we have unusual visitors. Elena's first meeting took place in the Zephyrian Imperial Palace. The building was massive, designed to intimidate visitors with its towering columns and dark stone walls. Elena walked through the halls carrying a simple bag, refusing the armed escort that was offered. Emperor Zexkar received her in his throne room. The emperor was old by Zephyrian standards, his blue-gray skin marked with the scars of dozens of challenge battles. He sat on a throne made from the metal of defeated enemy ships. Ambassador Vasquez, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had ruled for 50 years. I have read Admiral Kethvar's report about your captain. Chen, I must admit I am curious about your species. Elena bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, we are honored to meet you. We hope our visit will be the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. I brought you a gift, Your Majesty. This contains music from Earth, thousands of songs from different cultures and time periods. The Emperor accepted the device cautiously. Music? You bring music as a diplomatic gift? We believe that music helps people understand each other, Elena replied. When you hear how different human cultures express joy, sadness, love, and hope, you begin to understand what we value. Over the next several days, Elena met with various Zephyrian officials. Each meeting followed the same pattern. She would arrive with gifts, share human culture, and offer to help with any problems the Zephyrians faced. The breakthrough came when Elena learned about Princess Kiravan, the Emperor's youngest daughter. The princess was dying from a genetic condition that Zephyrian medicine could not cure. Elena immediately contacted Dr. Park. James, send me everything we have on genetic therapy. Their princess has a condition similar to what we've learned to treat on Earth. Elena, treating alien physiology could be dangerous. We don't know enough about their biology. Then we learn. Their doctors can work with our doctors. We figure it out together. Dr. Park arrived 2 days later with a team of Earth's best genetic specialists. What happened next surprised everyone. Instead of keeping their medical techniques secret, the humans shared everything. They showed Zephyrian doctors their equipment, explained their theories, and asked for Zephyrian input at every step. Dr. Kelmore, the royal physician, had expected the humans to demand payment or political favors for their help. Instead, they seemed genuinely excited to learn about Zephyrian medical knowledge. "Your cellular regeneration techniques are fascinating," Dr. Park told him as they worked together. "On Earth, we've been trying to solve similar problems for decades. If we combine your methods with our genetic therapy, we might be able to help not just the princess, but others with similar conditions." The treatment took 6 days. Princess Kieravan, who had been confined to bed for months, walked into the palace gardens for the first time in a year. Emperor Zexkar watched his daughter pick flowers and laugh with her friends. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said that evening, "what do you want in return for this gift?" Elena looked confused. "Your Majesty, I don't understand the question. My daughter's life has been saved. Surely there must be something you want. Territory, resources, trade agreements. We want your daughter to be healthy and happy," Elena replied simply. "That's all." The Emperor stared at her for a long moment. In 60 years of life, no one had ever done something for him without expecting something in return. "Your species is very strange, Ambassador." "Thank you, Your Majesty. We consider that a compliment." Word of Princess Kieravan's cure spread across the galaxy within days. On the war-torn planet of Vorth, General Rextor paused his campaign against the neighboring Stellar Union when he heard the news. On the hive world of Nexus, the collective consciousness spent hours analyzing reports of humans who healed enemies without demanding surrender. But not everyone was pleased with these developments. In the ancient fortress world of Zarthul, the hegemony's supreme war leader Drachnus read the reports with growing anger. "These humans threaten everything," he told his council of war chiefs. "If species begin to believe they can resolve disputes without combat, the natural order will collapse." "What do you suggest, war leader?" asked his chief advisor. "We prepare for the greatest challenge in galactic history. We will force the humans to fight, or we will destroy them. There is no third option." But across the galaxy, something was already changing. On worlds that had been enemies for centuries, leaders began to ask a simple question. If humans could cure their enemies' children, perhaps there were other ways to solve old problems. The age of endless challenges was beginning to crack, and it all started with a simple offer to share coffee. 3 massive fleets approached human space at the same time. General Marcus Torres stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the screens that showed hundreds of alien warships moving into position around Earth's outer colonies. "Sir, we have 3 separate species demanding combat challenges," reported Colonel Martinez. "The Kraxan Empire, the Stellar Dominion of Vorth, and the Hive Mind Collective of Nexus." Torres rubbed his tired eyes. As Earth's highest-ranking military officer, he had spent months studying alien combat tactics after Captain Chen's first contact with the Zephyrians. Now 3 of the galaxy's most aggressive warrior cultures had arrived at once. "What are their demands?" he asked. "All 3 want single combat challenges to establish humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. They're angry that we've been corrupting other species with our diplomatic methods." Torres looked out the command center's windows at the lights of Luna City below. Millions of humans lived and worked on the moon, building ships, conducting research, and raising families. All of them were depending on him to find a solution that didn't involve a war humanity might not survive. "Colonel, send a message to all 3 fleets. Invite them to the Luna Festival next week." Colonel Martinez blinked. "Sir, the Luna Festival? That's our biggest cultural celebration of the year." "Exactly. Tell them we want to show them what human strength really looks like." The festival preparation took on new urgency when the alien fleets accepted the invitation. What had been planned as a celebration of human culture became the most important diplomatic event in Earth's history. Commander Thrax-Zon of the Kraxan Empire was the first to arrive. The Kraxans were huge creatures, standing over 8 feet, tall with thick armored skin and 4 arms. Thrax-Zon had won over 200 challenge battles in his career. "General Torres," he said through the translator as he stepped off his shuttle, "I have come to face your greatest warrior in honorable combat. Where is your challenge arena?" Torres smiled and gestured toward the festival grounds spread across Luna's surface under protective domes. "Our arena is everywhere, Commander, but first, let me show you something interesting." They walked to an observation deck overlooking the festival preparations. Thousands of humans were working together to set up stages, food vendors, art displays, and gaming areas. What caught Thrax-Zon's attention was how they worked. "Your people seem to enjoy physical labor," he observed. "We call it teamwork," Torres replied. "Watch that group over there." A team of humans was raising a large stage structure. Instead of one person giving orders while others followed, they were all working together, calling out suggestions and helping each other solve problems. "Where is their leader?" Thrax-Zon asked. "They're all leaders. Each person contributes their skills to make the project successful." The Kraxan commander frowned. In his society, clear leadership hierarchies were essential. The strongest led, the weaker followed. This human approach seemed chaotic. Next to arrive was Admiral Vexara from the stellar dominion of Vorth. The Vorthians were lean and quick, with natural armor plating and razor-sharp claws. They prided themselves on individual combat skills. "General Torres, I challenge you to personal combat," she announced immediately upon landing. "Winner takes all, as is proper." "Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but I have a different kind of challenge for you. Would you like to participate in our war games instead?" War games? Torres led both alien commanders to a massive simulation chamber where human military units were conducting training exercises. But these weren't the kind of war games the aliens expected. "Today's scenario," Torres explained, "is a rescue operation on a damaged space station. 3 separate human teams will compete to see who can save the most civilians in the shortest time." The aliens watched in confusion as human soldiers worked not to defeat enemies, but to coordinate complex rescue operations. Teams communicated, constantly shared resources, and celebrated each other's successes. "This is not combat training," Admiral Vexara complained. "Where are the weapons? Where is the strategy for defeating enemies?" "We train for combat too," Torres assured her. "But most of our military strength goes toward protection and assistance operations. We've found that helping people is often more challenging than fighting them." The final arrival was Speaker Zix-9 from the Hive Mind Collective. The Nexus were insect-like creatures that shared a collective consciousness. Zix-9 spoke for all of them. "Humans, your approach to galactic relations is disrupting the natural order. You must prove your worth through combat or be eliminated." Torres nodded seriously. "I understand your concern, Speaker, but before we discuss combat, would you mind helping us with an emergency?" At that moment, alarms started ringing across Luna Base. A real crisis was developing. A mining accident had trapped 60 workers in an asteroid mine 3 hours away. The rescue would require precise coordination between multiple ships and specialized equipment. "This is not a drill," Torres announced. "We have people in danger and we need to act fast." Without hesitation, he turned to the 3 alien commanders. "We could use your help. Your ships are faster than ours, and your different technologies might save lives." Commander Thrax-Zon was the first to respond. "Kraxan ships are built for strength. We can move heavy debris." Admiral Vexara activated her communications device. "Vorthian assault craft can navigate tight spaces quickly." Even Speaker Zix-9's collective consciousness reached a decision. "The Nexus can coordinate complex operations efficiently." The next 6 hours changed everything. Human and alien crews worked side by side, using each species' unique abilities to free the trapped miners. The Kraxen's powerful ships moved massive rocks that blocked the mine entrance. The Vorthians' agile fighters carried medical supplies through dangerous, narrow passages. The Nexus Collective managed the complex logistics of the entire operation. When the last miner was brought to safety, a strange thing happened. The alien warriors, who had come to demand combat challenges, found themselves cheering alongside the humans. Commander Thraxon looked at his 4 hands, which were covered with dust from moving debris to save human lives. General Torres, I came here to prove Kraxen's superiority through battle. And what did you prove instead? Torres asked. That Kraxen's strength is most valuable when it protects others. Admiral Vexara was cleaning her claws, which she had used to cut through metal barriers in the rescue tunnels. On Vorth, we measure warrior worth by enemies defeated. How do you measure it now? Perhaps by lives saved. Speaker Zix-9's collective. Consciousness was processing new information. The Nexus has never experienced satisfaction from preserving life rather than taking it. This is unexpected. That evening at the Luna Festival, something unprecedented happened. 3 alien warrior cultures participated in human celebrations not as conquerors or subjects, but as guests. They tasted human food, listened to human music, and watched human art. More importantly, they shared their own cultures. Commander Thraxon demonstrated Kraxen's strength competitions that focused on building rather than destroying. Admiral Vexara showed Vorthian combat dances that told stories of heroism and sacrifice. The Nexus Collective created beautiful light patterns that represented their shared thoughts and dreams. General Torres, Commander Thraxon said, as the festival wound down, I still do not understand how your species survives without the challenge system. Torres looked up at the Earth hanging in Luna's sky. Commander, we learned something important in our history. The strongest person isn't the one who can defeat everyone else. The strongest person is the one who can turn enemies into friends. And if someone refuses to become a friend, then we defend ourselves and everyone else. But we always hope that won't be necessary. As the 3 alien fleets prepared to leave, their commanders faced a problem none of them had expected. How do you challenge a species that treats your arrival as an opportunity to work together? How do you fight people who respond to your weapons by asking if they can help you with anything? The answer was simple. You can't. And slowly, across the galaxy, other species were beginning to learn the same lesson. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped out of her research shuttle onto the surface of Kepler Station, humanity's newest diplomatic outpost. The station orbited a neutral moon at the edge of 3 different alien territories, making it the perfect place to study how human contact was changing the galaxy. Dr. Tanaka, welcome to Kepler Station, said Commander Sarah Kim, the station's director. We're excited to have you here. Your research could help us understand why our approach works so differently from everyone else's. Yuki looked through the station's massive windows at the ships docked outside. Vessels from dozen different species were parked side by side, their crews working together on joint projects that would have been impossible just months ago. Commander, I can see the changes happening, but I need to understand why. What makes humans different from every other species in the galaxy? Over the next several weeks, Yuki conducted interviews with representatives from over 20 different alien species. Each conversation revealed the same pattern: confusion, resistance, and then gradual acceptance of humanity's cooperative approach. Her first interview was with Captain Morrex from the Stellar Confederacy, a species known for their rigid military hierarchy. Doctor, Morrex said, his 3 eyes focusing intently on her, when we first encountered humans, we assumed you were weak. In our culture, anyone who refuses to fight is considered a coward. What changed your mind? Yuki asked. We challenged a human colony to combat. Instead of sending warriors, they sent engineers, The engineers examined our ships and pointed out several design flaws that were making our engines inefficient. They fixed the problems for free and asked if we needed help with anything else. Yuki made notes on her tablet. How did that make you feel? Confused, then grateful, then ashamed that we had threatened people who only wanted to help us. Similar. Stories emerged from every species she interviewed. The pattern was always the same. Aggression met with assistance, threats answered with offers of cooperation. Her most important interview came from High Priestess Seleneth of the Cosmic Order, an ancient religious organization that had influenced galactic politics for thousands of years. Dr. Tanaka, the priestess said, her voice carrying the wisdom of centuries, in all our religious texts, we speak of species that achieve enlightenment through conquest and struggle. But humans appear to have achieved something similar through cooperation and mutual aid. What do you mean by enlightenment? Yuki asked. The ability to see beyond immediate self-interest to the greater good of all life. Most species reach this understanding only after centuries of war teach them that conflict is ultimately destructive. Humans seem to have learned this lesson without the wars. That conversation gave Yuki the insight she needed. She spent the next 3 days reviewing humanity's historical records, comparing them with the development patterns of other galactic species. Her findings were remarkable. Most alien species had followed the same evolutionary path. They developed advanced weapons before advanced communication, achieved space travel before social cooperation, and encountered other species while still believing that survival required defeating competitors. Humans were different. Earth's unique history of diverse, isolated cultures had forced humanity to develop sophisticated diplomatic and cooperative skills before they reached the stars. When humans encountered aliens, their first instinct was to communicate and find common ground, not to fight for dominance. Dr. Tanaka was preparing her final report when Commander Kim rushed into her office with urgent news. Doctor, we have a situation developing. 3 different species are requesting human mediation for territorial disputes that have been going on for decades. The first request came from the Draxon Republic and the Stellar Federation, 2 neighboring species that had been fighting over mining rights to an asteroid belt for 40 years. The humans solved our problem in 6 hours, reported Ambassador Klexoro from the Draxon Republic to his home government. They suggested we share the asteroid belt and exchange mining technologies. Both sides get more resources than either would have gained through conquest. The second request involved the Collective of Nexus and the Independent Worlds Alliance, who had been locked in a Cold War for over a century. The human mediator, Dr. Chen, asked us a simple question, explained Speaker Vorth 7 from the Nexus. Collective. She said, "What do you both actually want?" When we answered honestly, we discovered that our goals weren't actually conflicting. We wanted different things from the same region of space. The third request was the most challenging. The warrior clans of Bextar and the peaceful domains of Yelandra had been in active warfare for generations, each believing the other was fundamentally evil. Human mediator Lieutenant Colonel James Wright took a different approach with this conflict. Instead of immediately trying to negotiate, he invited young people from both species to participate in joint humanitarian missions. When Bextar warriors and Yelandra healers worked together to help refugees from a natural disaster on Kepler 442b, Wright reported to Earth Command, they discovered that they had more in common than either group expected. Both cultures value protecting innocent life. They just had different ideas about how to do it. The success of human mediation spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. Species that had been enemies for millennia began requesting human assistance in resolving their conflicts, but the changes went deeper than simple conflict resolution. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, merchant species that had competed ruthlessly for centuries began forming cooperative ventures. On the research station at Vega 7, scientists from different species started sharing their discoveries instead of hoarding them for military advantages. Dr. Tanaka documented hundreds of these changes in her final report. Human influence on galactic. Civilization appears to be triggering a fundamental shift in how species interact with each other. The traditional model of competition and dominance is being replaced by a cooperative model that benefits all participants. However, not everyone welcomed these changes. In the dark fortress of Zarthul Prime, Supreme War leader Dracnus studied reports of the spreading human infection with growing rage. They are destroying everything, he told his Council of War chiefs. Thousand-year-old conflicts resolved in days. Warrior species becoming merchants and diplomats. If this continues, the natural order of the galaxy will collapse. His chief advisor, War Commander Sek Thul, reviewed the tactical reports. War leader, our intelligence suggests that human military capabilities are significant. They may not be as peaceful as they appear. Then we will force them to show their true nature, Dracnus decided. We will attack with such force that they have no choice but to fight back. When the galaxy sees humans engaging in total warfare, this cooperation madness will end. And if the humans defeat us, then we die as warriors should, fighting for the proper order of things. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Maria Santos received Dr. Tanaka's research findings with a mixture of pride and concern. Dr. Tanaka, your work confirms what we've been observing, the president said during their video conference. Humans are changing the galaxy, but are we changing it for the better? Madam President, based on my research, conflicts are decreasing, trade is increasing, and scientific cooperation is advancing at unprecedented rates. By any objective measure, the galaxy is becoming more peaceful and prosperous. But change always creates resistance. There are species and individuals who benefit from the old system of constant conflict. They won't give up without a fight. As if to confirm Dr. Tanaka's warning, Admiral Torres called from Luna Command with urgent news. Madam President, our deep space sensors are detecting massive fleet movements from the hegemony of Zarthul. It looks like they're mobilizing every warship they have. President Santos looked out her window at the peaceful Earth landscape below. Somewhere out there in the darkness of space, the old ways were preparing to make their final stand against the new. Admiral, begin preparations for Operation Guardian Protocol. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. But we'll do it the human way. What does that mean, Madam President? It means we'll win the war by ending it as quickly as possible, with as few casualties as possible for both sides. The greatest test of humanity's approach to galactic relations was about to begin. The largest space battle in galactic history began at 800 hours on a Tuesday. Admiral Sarah Chen, now commanding the combined human defense fleet, watched her screens as over 3,000 hegemony warships dropped out of hyperspace around the Earth system. The enemy fleet was massive, dark, and built for one purpose: total destruction. Admiral, called her tactical officer, the hegemony fleet is moving into attack formation. They're targeting civilian colonies first. Chen nodded grimly. Supreme War leader Dracnus was trying to force humanity into a rage-filled response by threatening innocent lives. It was exactly the kind of strategy she had expected from someone desperate to prove that cooperation was weakness. Signal all human ships, she ordered. Operation Guardian Protocol is now active. Protect every civilian in the system, human and alien alike. The battle began with the hegemony's first mistake. Instead of finding humans cowering behind defensive barriers, they encountered something no alien military had ever seen: a perfectly coordinated defense that prioritized protecting others over destroying enemies. Human ships moved in formations that seemed to dance around the heavier hegemony vessels. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy fleet, they focused on disabling weapons and engines while evacuating civilians from threatened areas. What are they doing? War Commander Sekthul asked from the bridge of the hegemony flagship destroyer. of hope. Supreme War Leader Dracnus studied the tactical displays with growing frustration. They're not fighting properly. They should be trying to destroy us, not disable us. Sir, our ships report that human weapons are incredibly accurate. They're targeting specific systems without causing critical damage to our vessels. Force. Them to fight, Dracnus roared. Target their homeworld directly. But when hegemony ships moved toward Earth, they encountered something that broke their understanding of space warfare. Human ships that deliberately positioned themselves between enemy weapons and civilian targets, taking damage meant for others. The turning point came when the human vessel, Compassion, heavily damaged while protecting a refugee transport, sent out a distress signal. Within minutes, ships from 6 different alien species that had been in the area rushed to assist. Admiral Chen, reported Captain Torres from the Rescue Coordination Center, we have Zephyrian, Kraxon, Vorthian, and Nexus ships moving to assist our damaged vessels. Chen allowed herself a small smile. And they're not just helping our ships, are they? No, Admiral. They're also rescuing hegemony crew members from disabled ships. Supreme War Leader Dracnus watched in horror as his grand plan to expose human weakness instead revealed something he had never seen. Former enemies working together to save the lives of people trying to kill them. This is madness, he whispered. They're saving our people. Why are they saving our people? The answer came from an unexpected source. On the communications channel, Admiral Chen's voice reached every ship in both fleets. Supreme War Leader. Dracnus, this is Admiral Chen. I'd like to talk with you. The bridge of the Destroyer of Hope fell silent. In 300 years of hegemony military history, no enemy commander had ever requested conversation in the middle of a battle. This is a trick, Sekthul warned. They want us to lower our guard. But Dracnus was staring at his tactical displays. Human ships continued to disable his vessels with surgical precision while simultaneously rescuing his crews from damaged ships. Nothing in his military training explained this behavior. Open communications, he ordered. Admiral Chen appeared. On his main screen, she was sitting in her command chair, and despite the battle raging around her, she looked calm and professional. Supreme War Leader, thank you for accepting my call. I have a question for you. What do you actually want from this conflict? The question hit Dracnus like a physical blow. What do I want? I want to preserve the natural order of the galaxy. I want to stop your species from corrupting our traditions with your weakness. I see. And what would that natural order look like if you succeeded? Species would return to earning their place through strength. The weak would serve the strong. Conflicts would be resolved through combat, as they should be. Chen nodded thoughtfully. That's one way to organize a galaxy, but can I show you what we've accomplished with our approach? Before Dracnus could respond, new information began appearing on his screens. Data from across the galaxy showing the results of human diplomatic interventions, conflicts resolved, trade increased, scientific breakthroughs achieved through cooperation. These statistics are impressive, Chen continued. But let me ask you something more personal. How many of your own people have died in challenge battles over the years? The question struck deep. Dracnus had lost 3 sons to various combat challenges, watching them die for causes that now seemed less important. Combat deaths are the price of honor, he replied, but his voice carried less conviction than before. What if I told you that, in the past 6 months, human mediation has prevented conflicts that would have killed over 2 million beings across 17 different species? What if I told you that your people could live in a galaxy where your strength is used to build rather than destroy? That is not the warrior way. Supreme War Leader, look around you. Your warriors are among the finest in the galaxy. Right now, some of them are in disabled ships, and beings from species that were your enemies yesterday are risking their lives to save them. Is that strength or weakness? Dracnus looked at his tactical displays again. Cracks on ships were indeed pulling hegemony survivors from damaged vessels, Vorthian fighters were providing cover for rescue operations. Even the hive mind Nexus Collective was coordinating medical assistance. Why? He asked quietly. Why are they saving my people? Because that's what strong people do, Chen replied. They protect others, even their enemies. The Supreme War Leader sat in silence for several minutes. Around him, his officers waited for orders that didn't come. Finally, he spoke. Admiral Chen, if I ordered my fleet to withdraw, what would happen to my people? The Hegemony Council will consider me a traitor for ending a battle without victory. Then don't end the battle. Win it. I don't understand. Chen's image smiled. Supreme War Leader, you have the finest warrior culture in the galaxy. Instead of using that strength to conquer others, use it to protect them. Join us in building something better. And if the Council refuses, then we'll help you convince them. Together. What happened next became legendary across the galaxy. Supreme War Leader Dracnus, in the middle of the greatest space battle in history, ordered his fleet to cease fire and began the first interstellar military alliance based on mutual protection rather than conquest. The transformation wasn't immediate. There were hegemony commanders who refused to accept the new orders, leading to smaller conflicts that had to be resolved. There were political disputes on Zarthul Prime when Dracnus returned with news of the alliance. But the core change was irreversible. The galaxy's most powerful military force had joined humanity's growing coalition of cooperative species. 6 months later, the first meeting of the Galactic Cooperation Council took place on Kepler Station. Representatives from over 50 species gathered to establish new protocols for interstellar relations. The old challenge system, announced Council President Elena Vasquez, is hereby replaced with the Cooperation Protocol. When species encounter each other, they will first attempt communication and mutual assistance. And if communication fails, asked a representative from the cautious Centauri Republic. Former Supreme War Leader Dracnus, now serving as the Council's Director of Conflict Resolution, stood to answer. Then we try harder to communicate, and if someone threatens innocent lives, we stop them together. Admiral Chen, watching from the observation deck, turned to Dr. Yuki Tanaka. Doctor, do you think it will work? Can the galaxy really change this completely? Dr. Tanaka smiled as she watched former enemies sharing lunch together in the station's common area. Admiral, I think we've already proven that it can. Humans didn't conquer the galaxy. We didn't even try to. Instead, we showed everyone something they had forgotten. What's that? That the strongest person in any room isn't the one who can defeat everyone else. The strongest person is the one who can turn a room full of enemies into a room full of friends. Below them, representatives from dozens of species were working together to plan joint exploration missions, collaborative research projects, and mutual aid agreements. The age of endless challenges was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it all started because humans had offered to share coffee instead of trading blows. In the end, that had made all the difference.